Hello to all my listeners. Welcome and or welcome back to Honestly Leah. I hope that you all have been enjoying these episodes thus far. There are not very many of them, but the more I record them and release them, the more they'll be. But if you all have not gotten caught, let's try that again. If you all have not gotten caught up on the other episodes that I have out already or that have been released, you can go get caught up on them. Pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts. This podcast is supposed to be on Amazon Music and Audible. I did, copy my RSS link or whatever the hell that is, and put it up there. I do not have a link as of yet as to where I can, so that I could post it or share it on any of my social media. But as soon as I get it, I will be sure to, I'll be sure to put that in the where it needs to be so that everybody can follow, um um or everybody can view it. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode, shall we? Um, Today we're going to talk about something that everybody has experienced. Um, and young or old, gray or not, you all have experienced a form of this at some point in your life. In fact, you may be going through it right now and you may feel like you will never get over it, but it's possible you will get through it. And the it that I am referring to is heartbreak. Um, Heartbreak is something that comes in many forms and it happens to all of us. It doesn't matter what age, it doesn't matter ethnicity. Heartbreak knows no bounds and it does not discriminate. Um, and the heartbreak that I'm going to be talking about today is the kind that we cause to ourselves. Um, and what I mean by that is we will stay in situations or in predicaments where we know the outcome and but we expect something different. And when we don't get that something different, we're all upset and hurt about it. So that's what I mean. You cause yourself your own heartbreak when you are dealing with a person or staying in a situation where you know what the outcome is going to be, or how that person is and is going to continue to be. But, you ignore that. And a big part of causing your own heartbreak is failing to acknowledge the reality that is in front of you and coming up with the alternate reality that lives in your head. And we intentionally become blind to, the facts of the situation or the facts that the person has presented to us. And I too, I'm no exception. I'm sorry y'all for all this moving. I'm just trying to get comfortable. I have been a victim of causing myself my own heartbreak, and it takes a lot for you to really come to terms with that was something that you were a part of. You were just as much a part of your own heartache as the person who caused it in the first place. And for me, my heartache was being around family members that, didn't mean me any well, that only served, being around family members that, only seen me as something that was beneficial to them. So if I had something that they needed, they were around me then. In particular, money. I have had people steal from me, and I've had people, and it's like, it's people that you wouldn't think would do it to you that have done it to you. And so that's hard. That's heartbreaking because you have people that are telling you that like, it's these people that are doing this. It's not, you're not being, and at a certain point, it, you don't want to believe it, but you know it. and thank God I'm not around that anymore. I don't have to worry about that. And then my recent heartache, or the most recent times that I've caused myself heartache is, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm all on the mic and stuff. The most recent time that I've caused myself some heartache was, in the last relationship that I was in. I'm sorry, y'all, my lips are dry. So it's within the last relationship that I was in. I had my first boyfriend when I was like 18, 19. I was 19. 19 going on 20. So I was in high school. I reconnected with a guy that I had met when I was in kindergarten. We went to the same school together. This was when I lived in Mississippi. I went to the school for the blind in Mississippi because obviously the schools there were not equipped to handle me or, take care of my needs and whatnot. So I went to a school for the blind and I met him there. He was annoying. He always did shit to get on my nerves. I was a grandma's girl. I did not want to go to this school. I cried pretty much every single Sunday that I had to get on the bus and leave. Because I wasn't really feeling them like that. I ain't want to be there. But hey, it is what it is. But I ended up leaving and, life went on. I never forgot about those people because, they were a part of my life. They were there when I started school there. So I didn't forget about him at all. He was one of those ones that I didn't forget about either. But by the time I had gotten back to the school, because I moved back to Mississippi when I was 18, by the time I had gotten back to the school, he'd already graduated and moved on. So it was just like, oh, okay. So he ended up calling me we lived in dorms. I lived on campus because I was not close enough to where I could go home every single day. So I lived on campus, as did a lot of the students. He ended up calling the girls' dorm. They had us separated by dorms. So he ended up calling the girls' dorm. He asked for me and we spoke and we talked and we had talked like that. I think we started talking in May of 2017. And then by February of we started talking May of 2016. I'm fucking it up. And by February of 2017, we were together. So it was roughly 8 months that we talked to each other or whatever. Were there red flags there? Absolutely. Did I notice them at the time? Was I paying any attention? No, I wasn't. When did I start causing myself my heartache? When he cheated on me for the first time. That I knew about. And I should have known then that, he really didn't give a fuck about your feelings because he didn't have enough balls to tell you that, hey, this isn't really necessary. This isn't really working. And I'm not really feeling this relationship in the way that you are. So I really think it'd be best that we, cut things off. But, nonetheless, I took him back because like I said, we were together for 3 years. I took him back. But when I took him back, it was almost as if I was trying to regain his trust. It was almost as if I had fucked around and I bought a whole nother dude up to where we were. We were in Louisiana at the time, at a training center, a blind training center, basically. And blind training is basically where there are centers all across the country, pretty much, where blind people go for about 6 to 9 months, and they learn how to live independently on their own, and they learn all the skills that are necessary to do that. So they teach you how to cook and clean. They teach you they teach you orientation and mobility, which is you learning how to use your cane. It is also you learning how to navigate using other modes of transportation. So the bus, the subway, if the subway or the train, if there is a train in your area, maybe airplanes, just other modes of transportation. They teach you how to use all of that. They teach you how to get around, the city that you live in, just orientating you, getting you oriented orienting you, or is that a word? Getting you oriented to, or getting you used to where you are living, or kind of give familiar, just kind of, or familiarizing you with something similar, because you might not live in the city where the center is, but if you live in a bigger city or a smaller town, it may be something similar to what you have at home. Whenever you go home, y'all know what I'm saying. Anyways, so we were there, and that's when I met the girl for the first time or whatever. I should have left then, but like I said, we stayed for 3 years, and I was trying to work some shit out, because me personally, I should have let go, but I didn't have the strength to let go, because and then by that time, I think I had already given him my virginity. We had already had sex and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there was a lot that was going into that. That's a soul tie. I also had a soul tie there, because we had sex, and I had lost my virginity to him. And then too, like, I really did, even before then, I really did feel some type of way about it. I had feelings for him, that had nothing to do with sex. So sex was not the main part of it, but it did become a significant part, but nonetheless, it still hurt. So we stayed, and, basically, it was, it was rough, because like I said, it was almost as if I was trying to gain his trust. And it was almost as if, I was the one that had brought somebody from outside of the relationship up to my apartment to spend the weekend. And like, I had, been planning to fuck around with them or do whatever. Like, I had been lying the whole entire time. And it's like, looking back, like, I shouldn't have to prove a motherfucking thing to you, because you cheated on me first. But that's just how that went. And that's where my heartache started. Because I knew, I should have known, I should have been smarter, and I should have known better than to stay, with somebody who has cheated and basically, said fuck you and your feelings. But I didn't. And so the accusations kind of continued for a while, the whole while we were in Louisiana. Once we left Louisiana, I ended up moving back with my mom, because apparently him getting back with him wasn't the only irresponsible thing I did. So I ended up moving back to Memphis with my mom. By that time, a lot of my siblings had left Mississippi because of some shit that went on with while we were there, but that's a whole nother thing. That's not important. So everybody's living in Memphis, including me. I stayed in Memphis for about 5 months, and during that time we were together, then we ended up breaking up. So we broke up for about the whole duration of the time that I was in Memphis. Maybe we got back together that Thanksgiving. And this was all in 2017. So we hadn't even been together a year, and all this shit had happened. But so, there were so many things that went on. I kept breaking my own heart, because every time we get into an argument, he would say things that he knew for a fact would be hurtful. And I wasn't even on that type of level. Like, I wasn't even trying to be hurtful, but I'm just letting you know how I felt about a situation. And looking back on it now, you didn't want to hear what I had to say, because you didn't like what I had to say. You always criticized what I said, because you felt like the delivery was fucked up. And you felt like, I could have said it in a better way, or I shouldn't have just said anything at all. And so, looking back on that, like, when we would get into arguments and stuff like that, one time he said, I regret leaving the girl that I was with for you. The last time, like late 2019, we had got into it, because I asked him if he was gonna ever put out some more music, because he was an aspiring rapper. And I was like, aren't you tired of the same old songs? But we were texting, which we shouldn't have been texting. I should have probably called him, but I feel like you can kind of read a person's tone through a text message, and I wasn't even being malicious in how I was talking. I was just asking a question, but it ended up escalating because he misread or misinterpreted the message, and I was like, I'm gonna stop texting you before we end up saying some shit that we will regret saying, or before things get said that shouldn't be said, and this and that. I was trying to avoid, like, I was trying to avoid us doing what we always did, saying shit that we shouldn't be saying, and really it was more so on his end than mine. I could ask him today, name something that I have said to you that really just hurt your feelings, that really just made you feel some type of way. And he gonna tell you he don't know. You don't know because I ain't never did no shit like that to you. But I digress. So, I ignored him, and then he fucked around and said, you ain't nothing but some pussy and good mouth to me. If you got kids, tell them to leave. But And I'm like, wow. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm just done with you in this whole entire situation. Because at this point, you've been saying that for too long. There was a lot going on with him. And as far as like, he had a whole lot of other issues going on that he needed to work through. He didn't want to work through them. He wasn't, in my opinion, he was not interested in healing himself and trying to be a better version of himself, not for me or the next girl, but for just solely for him. Because, I've even said, I told him once before, like, you walk around and you're just bitter for no reason. And then I get the brunt of everything. I get the brunt of all your attitudes, any stress you might have. Like, I get the brunt of all of it, and that hurts. But I said all that to say, I stayed in that relationship hoping and praying that it would get back to the way that it used to be, or that it was, before all the bullshit happened. And it never got back to that point. And I think it took for me to say that I was done for him to just kind of be like, oh, because I was never the one to walk away. It was always him. Another thing that another cause of my own heartache. I allowed him to walk away and come back into my life whenever he got good and goddamn ready to. So that was dumb. But I never was the one to leave. And then the first time I get ready to say I'm leaving, or I'm done and I don't want to do this anymore, now it's a big issue. Like, you make it seem like I've been doing this entire time, and I know I haven't. I've never once just up and abandoned you because I feel short of whatever it is that I feel like I should be doing. Or, whatever. Like, I never did that. Even though we had rough patches, I am of the notion that, yeah, we gonna argue and we're gonna fight, but we gonna argue and fight together. I'm not gonna leave you hanging. And now if it gets too bad and it gets to a point where it's starting to be toxic and it's just starting to be too much, then yeah, I'm gonna have to step back, and I'm gonna have to leave the situation, because now it's starting to cost me a lot. So yeah, we end up causing ourselves heartache because we choose to ignore the facts that are right in front of us. We choose to ignore the person that is standing right in front of us. We choose to ignore the person that is being presented to us. We are choosing to ignore the fact that this person is telling us who they are. And, we don't want to accept that because we want the reality in our head to be the reality, that is, that shit. We want the reality in our head to be, our actual reality, is what I was trying to say. I fucked that all the way up. But anyways, and that's what I wanted. A lot of the stuff that I think we tolerate comes from childhood. Even though you're not supposed to tolerate it, you tolerate it anyway. And I think that sometimes we know we want better. We know we don't want the same type of relationships that our parents had or the people around us had. But we don't necessarily know what the opposite of that looks like. Like, I knew that the opposite, of I knew that the opposite of being cheated on and being called out of your name and being disrespected. I'm coming up with new words and shit. I knew the opposite of being disrespected and being cheated on and being, just treated like shit was people having respect for you and respecting your boundaries, and people, treating you like a human being, like a decent human being. But what did that look like? Because I really didn't have that growing up in the relationships that I saw, especially the ones, that my mom were involved in. My mom had some shitty men, my dad included. And they didn't always treat her in the nicest way. And that's what she put up with. And we try to break the generational cycles or curses and things like that. And we try to figure out what that looks like. And sometimes, we have that right in front of us, but because we have never seen those traits, we don't know, we don't notice what that is. And the older you get, you really have to kind of take a step back and look at yourself and be like, okay, I'm starting to repeat all of the same things that I grew up around. And I have to stop, because now I'm starting to be toxic and I'm causing somebody to hurt that doesn't need to. And, in turn, I'm going to break my own heart, because now I'm going to miss out on a potentially good person. And I'm not just speaking in terms of like relationships romantic wise, but just relationships in terms of like friends, in terms of, just people just being there to look out for you, things like that. I'm going to end up hurting myself because I don't know what it is to have somebody who genuinely cares, or who genuinely has my best interest, or who genuinely loves me and cares for me. We don't if you don't see those types of relationships modeled around you, then you're never going to know what to look for. But that's, yeah, I'm running out of words, y'all. I don't know what else to say. But once I started to, when I started to drift away from all of that negativity, be it from him or family members that, kind of gave my life more drama than it needed, I started to become happier, and I'm probably really, really happy now. Because I don't have that extra stress of worrying about, what his mood is going to be today, or if I'm going to be able to swipe my card and not be declined today. If I'm going to have, enough money for me to be able to just buy anything or to just live off of. If I'm going to be criticized for my physical appearance today. If I'm going to be criticized for simply being happy, and if I'm going to be accused of somebody else making me happy because I'm just abnormally happy for no reason at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to worry about any of those things, because I literally have walked away and just kind of said, I'm going to love, like, my family will always be my family. My sisters will always be my sisters, all that kind of stuff. And I'm always going to have, love for them. But you just learn to love people at a distance. And then some people I think the love that you used to have for them turns into hate. And luckily, it hasn't turned into hate for him. I don't hate him. I don't have any ill will or any bad feelings towards him or anything like that. But I just don't feel the same way that I used to before. I decided back in July that I was done with him. I was done with the relationship entirely, and I was done tolerating less, because I knew I deserved better than what I was getting. And he wasn't giving me that. And by the time he decided that that's what he wanted to do, I didn't want it anymore. And I think that's what people have to understand is that when you are in a relationship with somebody and they are telling you time and time and time and time again that, hey, what you're doing is hurting me. And, I really would like for you to, or I really would like for you to start, paying more attention. I really would like more of your time because I don't get to see you as much. I'd like for you to go, I'd like to, go out on dates. I'd like to do this. Nobody's going to keep asking you to do the same old thing 3 and 4 and 5 different times. I don't know about y'all, but twice is begging. If I had to ask you twice, I'm begging. I don't like to beg. That's not me. That's not something that I'm that I like to do. I don't like that kind of stuff. I shouldn't have to beg you to do the bare minimum. I shouldn't have to beg you to, spend some time with me and give me a little bit of affection or take me out on a date. I shouldn't have to beg you to talk to me with some human decency and respect. I shouldn't have to beg you to do that. I shouldn't have to, it's just the bare minimum type of things. I shouldn't have to beg you to do that. And you don't have to go above and beyond. That's just basic stuff. Like, depending on the relationship you're in, that's just basic stuff that you should already be doing. And when those people that are not doing what you're asking of them decide to do it, then only then it's too late. Because it's like I've spent all this time and energy trying to tell you and trying to get you to pay attention to me and listen to me. And now that you are, it's like I'm tired. I don't even want it no more. I've lost all desire for you to do anything that I've asked you to do. I don't care about it that much. And that's the way it got. And I had to, when 2020 rolled around, I started having really honest conversations, and I just started letting my feelings be known because at this point I'm tired of holding shit in. And I was just honest, and y'all was just like, I'm just tired of the same old cycle with you that we always go through. Every single time something goes wrong, we fall back into the same old cycle, and then we get better, and then it happens again. And then I said, every time we argue, words are always being said that shouldn't be said. And he felt some type of way because he was like, I feel like you're trying to say that I say that. I mean, I am saying it. I'm not saying it, but I'm saying it because you do. You did that, sir. Like, I'm not understanding, what the harm is in me being honest. But, like I said, the longer you stay in a relationship, and especially once you know your outcome, like once you, not your outcome, but, well, yeah, once you have, like, when you know that the outcome is not going to be different, and the person that you're dealing with isn't going to change or isn't trying to make an effort to change, and you stay anyway, then you become the cause of your own heartache. And then that's when it becomes a choice for you to stay, because they showed you the first time who they were, and you gave them the benefit of the doubt. You didn't believe them, but you gave them the benefit of the doubt. And then they showed you the second time, and you decided to stay. After a while, after so many times, you chose to stay at this point because now they've showed you their behavior on a few occasions. So in the beginning, you didn't sign up for this. But every single time they showed their ass, you renewed your contract and said, this is what I want. Every single time they did something that went against how you would like to be treated, and you stayed, you renewed the contract and said, I could deal with that. So, that's how you cause your own heartache. But I've gotten to a point now where I have, I'm moving on from it, and I am slowly just getting back to being my normal self. I'm not depressed all the time. I'm not sad all the time. I'm not allowing him to alter my moods and my day all the time. Matter of fact, he's blocked on everything. He cannot contact me. I cannot and will not contact him. Well, I could, but I'm probably blocked on everything on his end too. But I don't have a desire to contact him by any means. And also let's talk about that for a second. When you decide that you are done with people, sometimes certain relationships you need some certain people. You got to cut it off completely. You have to cut all ties. You have to cut all lines of communication. You can't have any line of communication open. Because then when you have just one line, I don't care if it's the tiniest bit of communication, when you have it open, they feel like they have access to you, which means they can check on you periodically and they can kind of see how you're doing and compare how you're doing to how they're doing. No. Especially if it became a point where it was a toxic type of relationship. And it doesn't matter who it was. It doesn't matter if it was a friend. It doesn't matter if it was a family member. It doesn't matter if it was a an extended member of your family. It doesn't matter if it was a coworker or a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever, a significant other. It doesn't matter who or who it was. Like, when you have made up your mind that you want to be done with everything, and you know for a fact that these people, were terrible people to you, and they just didn't mean you well, you have to cut off all forms of communication with them. When you block somebody, it's not so that they don't see what you're doing. It's not about that. It's not about them, not being able to see what it is you're doing, and them, and them not being able to like and comment on your posts and stalk your social media pages and things like that. It's not always about that. I mean, it is, but it's also about them not being able to have that much access to you anymore. You don't have the privilege of being able to see me every day. You don't have the privilege of being able to text and call me every day. You lost that privilege because you didn't know how to treat me when you had it. You didn't take advantage of the privilege when you had it. You didn't want to talk to me when you had the opportunity to. Now you don't have the opportunity. So it's all about that. It's all about doing that. And I just made a clean break. I blocked him the very day that we broke up. He got blocked on everything. He got blocked on everything. Sometimes it even means deleting any text messages that you may have so that you don't have to go down that rabbit hole of having to relive everything. And that's okay. You don't have to, you're not obligated to keep the lines of communication open with them, especially if they didn't mean you any good. You don't have to do that. But also, too, another thing to remember is that, or another thing to think about is, say you see them out in public, right? Like, does anybody, I don't know if anybody knows what it is to not have any hard feelings towards anybody when you break up with them. Like, yeah, I blocked you on everything, but I still ain't got no hard feelings towards you. I am just at a point right now where I don't have the energy to have hard feelings towards you. And I also don't want you to, I just don't want to have that access to you. I just don't want you to have that amount of access to me anymore. But it is the most amazing feeling to have no hard feelings towards somebody when you see them in public, or say, for instance, they end up commenting on a post of yours that you post on social media, or you see them out in public or whatever. And it's like, okay, like, I have no hard feelings towards anybody. Like I said earlier, I don't have any hate towards anybody. When you leave a situation with no hate in your heart, with no bitterness towards anybody, with no ill will or anything like that, it is the most amazing feeling in the world. When you leave a relationship and you have all those things, you have hatred and bitterness and all that, that requires a lot of energy. You have to have a certain amount of energy to carry all those things with you. And I didn't have the energy to begin with. When I left, I was tired. I was drained. And I just wanted to be done. So if I saw him out in public today, I wouldn't hate him. I wouldn't have any hard feelings towards him at all. I wouldn't have any hard feelings towards him at all, because it's like, why? I'm fine. I'm good. I just came to the realization that, we weren't for each other. The relationship ran its course 2.5 years ago. But me being me, I was the one that didn't want to let it go. You did, but I kept trying to fight and hold on. So I think it's important to remember, when you are going through relationships where, like this, where you're finding it hard to let go. The question that you need to ask yourself is, why are you still here in the first place? What is keeping you? Why are you holding on to this relationship? What is so significant about it that is making it so difficult for you to leave? And if it's a significant other, it may be the fact that he or she was your first, first boyfriend or girlfriend, your first true relationship. And maybe you do have a soul tie there. That is very real. That causes a lot of people to stay in a relationship longer than they should, because they have a soul tie. You've gotten sex involved in the equation. And sex is not just two body parts coming together. It's emotions, it's energy, it's all of that type of stuff. So, it's hard to kind of pull yourself out of that relationship when you've had that type of thing involved. It's my family, it's my blood, and da 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 da. Blood doesn't necessarily make you family. You can meet a stranger off the street and they'll treat you more like family than your own family will. But that's understandable. My family's all I have. I don't have anybody else. That's a valid reason for holding on, for staying, for keeping a relationship with someone. I don't want to be alone. It's a hard one to admit, but it's a very valid reason. It's a very, I don't know if it's a good reason, but it is a reason why people hold on. They don't want to be alone. This person is all they know. This life that they've had is all they know. And, they don't want to have to get out here and start over. But you have to look at it from this point of view. We're in our 20s and 30s. Well, the people, hopefully, some of you that may be listening to this podcast, you're probably in the same age bracket as me. I'm in my 20s, right? We're in our 20s. We're in our 30s, 40s, 50s. We have a whole life ahead of us to live. And there's nothing, sometimes a restart is the best thing. There is nothing wrong with starting over. Sometimes a restart and a reset is just what the doctor ordered. Sometimes it's the best thing to do in the moment. Just starting new and starting fresh and clearing your head and leaving all that stuff behind is like, why not? But it is scary, which is understandable. So ask yourself, why are you still holding on if you are in a relationship? If you are in a relationship that is full of negativity and toxic energy and it's not serving you, ask yourself, why are you still here? Because that may give you, that may give you a better understanding. That'll give you a better understanding as to, why you're allowing things to go on. But yeah, that's basically this entire episode. It's about, your own heartache. And I think, well, before I end it, things you could do, like everybody always talks about, when you leave a relationship, or maybe how to get out of a relationship, or cut off somebody who didn't mean you any good, or, who just wasn't a nice person to be around, or whatever the case. But nobody ever talks about like how to heal from that relationship, or how to heal from those people that cause you so much pain. Nobody ever talks about that. And for me, it's been a lot of reflecting. It's been talking about it with people. In the relationship that I was in, I literally kind of pushed away a lot of my guy friends so that he could feel more secure and so that he wouldn't have to worry about, or so that I would have to worry about him thinking that I was cheating. Obviously, it didn't work because, you know, he gonna think what he gonna think anyway, because more than likely he was doing the very shit he was accusing me of. But anyways, excuse me. So when I broke up with him in July, excuse me, Lord have mercy. When I broke up with him in July, that September, I reconnected with a friend of mine that I met at the Adam McBride Center. The two of them just so happened to went to school together. And they didn't have the nicest history with each other. My ex ended up stealing. He stole from him. He stole from my friend or whatever. And my friend wanted to respectfully beat his ass because you didn't have to steal. Like, you could ask me. My ex brought a knife to school, and my ex was one of those type of people where he talks so tough, but it's like, you're not as tough as you say you are. You may have grown up in the hood. Just because you grow up in the hood does not mean you are hood. It does not mean you are about that life. There are people who are hood, who grew up in the hood, who actually live that lifestyle. You're not one of them. You don't do that. Stop it. But so I reconnected with him. He was blocked. I didn't know it. Also, another friend of mine that I went to high school with, he got blocked. And notice, in the common denominator that the commonality that these two guys have is that one of them I was trying to go after and date in high school, but it didn't work. And then the other one was somebody that he thought I cheated on him with. One of them was somebody that I told him if he and I weren't dating, he would be, that person would be somebody that I would date. The friend that I'm referring to, we'll call him C. He just did things that my boyfriend at the time wasn't doing. And we were strictly friends, and that's all we've ever been, is friends. And sometimes you have those friends where, like, you can do stuff for them, like guy friends, you can do stuff for them, and it's not about, you're not using sex as a bargaining chip. I don't have to bust it open, for a plate of food. I don't have to bust it open for, for whatever. I've never had to spread my legs to get anything that I wanted from a guy or from anybody. A lot of the guys that were up there, they liked me because of who I was and because of my personality. The cream cake that sits between my legs has absolutely nothing to do with them doing things for me or getting me things. It had absolutely nothing to do with it. And I will never, I'll never reduce myself down to that point where I feel like I have to open my legs just to get something. Because if I feel like I have to do that, I'll just go without. It ain't even that serious for me, honestly. But we hung out and we just kind of vibed and we clicked, and it's just like, okay, but he didn't like that. He didn't like that type of thing. So he got blocked, and then we ended up reconnecting. And I noticed that, when I had friends, it made it a little bit easier to deal with the bullshit that I was going through with him. It still kind of fucked me up, a lot of the stuff, but it made it kind of easier to deal with a lot of the stuff that I was going through. Then when I got back around family, and I started to see a lot of the stuff that was going on with them, with their men and things like that. Y'all, my throat dry. When I got back around my family and I started to see the stuff they were dealing with their men and all that kind of stuff, I was just kind of like, I can't. This can't be me. This cannot be me and years down the line. But, I said all that to say, like, I said all of that to say this, like, when you get out of a relationship with somebody, one of the ways you heal is by taking accountability for where you went wrong, for the part that you played in the relationship going the way that it went. Lord, if I could just talk, it would be so nice. You know what I'm saying? And for me, I take accountability for tolerating way too much and for not speaking up when I knew something was bothering me, and for not, for just allowing too much shit to go on even though I knew better. That's where I take my account. That's where I fucked up for myself. And it really takes a lot of maturity. It takes for you to really be a grown ass adult to sit up here and be like, I was wrong for XYZ. It takes a lot of maturity to do that. And when you really, really want to heal from something and you really, really want to get over it, and that's something that is necessary. It has to be done. You cannot sit here and act like you played no part in the relationship, going the way that it did. You may not have played a part in it going south. Like, you may not have played a part in the person deciding to step outside of the relationship and cheat. But you played a part in how you allowed them to treat you and the things that you allowed them to get away with. And the things that you allowed them to get away with and the way that you allowed them to treat you dictated how the relationship was or how it went. So that's what that was my fuck up. That was the part I played in all of it. Allowing somebody to treat me a certain way and allowing the relationship to go in that direction. I don't even know what the hell I'm trying to say. Allowing the relationship to just continue on a path of like disrespect and nonchalantness, and like him just not giving a fuck, and me not holding him accountable because he didn't give a fuck, or because he wasn't treating me the way that I was supposed to be treated. So that was the biggest part that I played. That's number one. Sitting back and being able to reflect and hold yourself accountable for any role that you may or may not have played in the relationship. And that goes for the person who was on the receiving end of, abuse or whatever, the wrongdoing, and the person who was doing the wrong. That goes for both parties involved. Being able to literally sit here and hold yourselves accountable for what you did in the relationship, that takes a lot of maturity, and you really have to be ready to do that, and really be ready, and it requires a lot of honesty as well. So yeah. Another thing is not speaking up, not really, I said this already, but not just voicing my opinions and, trying to spare people's feelings. I do that a lot. Giving people the benefit of the doubt when, clearly it's not what I'm telling myself it is. If you know for a fact that every time you come around this person, you have a few dollars coming up missing, or you have activity going on in your car that you normally wouldn't have, it's them. Ma'am, sir, it's them. They doing it. If you know that every single time you come around this person, they acting funny, or they're stepping in another room to take phone calls, and they're all of a sudden trying to hide their phone, their screen on their phones, and they're not willing to, be as open with you with passwords or giving you access to their phones, and, they're just acting different, not phones, but just any type of devices and any type of social media accounts and stuff like that, and they're acting different. More than likely, they're cheating. If they're always accusing you of doing some shit and for a fact you're not doing anything, they're doing what they're accusing you of. If every time you come around or you're in front of a group of people, their sole purpose is to humiliate you and make you feel dumb and disrespect you in front of everybody just to make themselves feel powerful and empowered, they're an asshole. They're telling you for themselves, I do this. This is what I do, and I I am an asshole because they tell you by their actions the type of person that they are, and you make the choice of whether or not you want to believe that that's who they are. So it's about not giving people the benefit of the doubt, not sparing people's feelings, not staying silent when you know something is bothering you, when you know something is fucking with you. It's all of those things. And also, another part of healing is finding things that used to make you happy. When you get into a relationship, don't stop doing things that brought you happiness. Don't stop doing things that you loved. Because as soon as something goes wrong and y'all end up breaking up, now you're stuck and you don't have anything to do. But yet they're out living their best life because they haven't stopped living a life outside of the relationship, outside of you. You know what I'm saying? They still have a life for themselves, like their individual life outside of the relationship. So they're able to move on and do other things to help pass the time. To kind of help them get past this rough patch. Meanwhile, you're stuck at home with nothing to do, no hobbies, no friends, no nothing. Don't get rid of anything or anybody that was making you happy before they came along. People that, if they know you, they'll have to accept the fact that, like, hey, this is, they should be accepting of the fact that, these are my friends and we hang out, and this is what I like to do, just for myself. Find some things to do for yourself. And then I think the most important thing that you can do, though, when you get out of a relationship or when you, when you've cut somebody off, is just take some time and get to know you. Like, fall in love with you again and figure out, what you like and what you don't like. And, figure out what parts of yourself you could work on, what parts of yourself you need to do away with and transform, what parts of yourself, you like and dislike. All of that plays a part in, you healing from heartache, whether you caused it or somebody else caused it. It all plays a part. And you'll have your days where you'll backslide and, you'll probably slip. And that's fine. That's normal. But just keep at it. And take it slow. There's no need to rush. Why are you rushing? Like, don't rush to find, to try to get over somebody. If it takes you a while to get over somebody, then it's going to take you a while. And that's fine. You're not on anybody else's time but yours. You start dating when you're ready. You start having friends when you're ready. You start allowing those family members back into your life when you feel that they have made the necessary changes. You start dealing with that side of the family when you're ready to deal with them, and you will deal with them how you feel, in a way that makes you comfortable. You will date in a way that makes you feel safe, and you will date as slow as you need to. You will not let anybody try to pressure you or rush you into doing something because it's something that they want. Damn what they want. This is about you. So that's today's episode about heartache and, specifically the heartache that we cause to ourselves. I hope that, me learning or me sharing my story about the ways that I cause myself some heartache really does help you all. I hope that those last few little tidbits I gave of advice, I hope that does help. I also hope that, you all enjoyed this episode. And I hope that, where you do listen to this episode, wherever, you get your podcast from. And tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Post about it on social media if you can. Also, follow me on social media. All my social medias They're the same name as the podcast. TikTok, Instagram, and what's the other one? Twitter. TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter are all the same. At Honestly Leah, it's all the same stuff.